Hello, this is Mr. Corkill with Reading is Comprehension. This is this slideshow goes along with the lessons that we had today, in which students were responding in the chat, making connections with the slides. All right, we're going to discuss what reading is, and when reading gets confusing, and what to do to fix that confusion. All right, good readers. Right? There are good readers. What do? They don't do anything that you or I can't really do. They could do the same thing. My students are just as smart as the students in Los Angeles or Chicago or in Dallas at any type of school. Right? We just need some skills. Good readers, what do? What happens when we read? What happens when we read? There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens when we read. There's a whole bunch of technical stuff that happens when we read, right? I mean, we're not even going to get into that because that would take a couple of years to study. Things like traphophonic, lexical cues, syntactic form, semantic cues, schematic cues, pragmatic cues, all right? All those things are the technical scientific jargon that explains what happens when we read. Okay, but for our purposes, we want to understand some things that, in different terms, that happen when we read. Reading must be about thinking and constructing. Reading is active. Reading is an active process. Reading is complex. Reading is very complex. A lot of stuff is going on. It should be going on in your mind. This is very important. Teachers and parents, we cannot read your mind to see if you are comprehending what you're doing. Right? We have no way of knowing what you're thinking. We can't read your mind. So if you're just like acting like you're reading, we don't know the difference. Next, reading words that create no meaning in one's mind is not reading at all. It's actually called fake reading, right? Fake reading. Read page 1, read the introduction, please. The prologue, the sonnet at the beginning of this play. Two households, both alike in dignity and Feverona, wherever they are, seen from ancient grudge, make forth new mutiny. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their lives. Teacher says, "Oh, good. You read that really well. What does it mean? What's happening?" But you just read it. You knew every single word in the sonnet. Well, what do you mean you don't understand what's happening? I was fake reading. I was just reading words. That's not reading. There's no comprehension going on. There are voices in our mind. Yes, let's discuss this. There are voices in our mind, and when we read, there should be two voices in our mind. Right? There should be two voices in our mind. When we think, we hear our own voice in our mind. Right? We hear our own voice in our mind. Okay, and when you read, you hear the words in your own voice in your mind. We'll get back to this in just a second. How do we know we've checked out while reading? Right? 6 signals can reveal the answer. Okay, the 6 signals, six things to check in with yourself to find out if you are comprehending what you're reading. Firstly, here's back to the voice. Is the inner voice interacting with the texts? There should be interaction between the text and the mind, the voice, right? There's a second voice. Okay, A, voice 1 reads the words. B, voice 2 has a conversation with the text. That doesn't mean that you're suffering from some sort of psychosis or multiple personality disorder at all. It is natural. It is natural to be reading something and then questions pop in your mind, or observations, or memories flood your mind, and you start thinking about things, making connections with it. Okay, there should be a conversation with the words and your mind. If that's not happening, you're not comprehending. It's just words, either out loud or in your mind. Next, while you're reading, is the mind's eye shut off? Right? A video should play in your mind while you read. There should be a whole thing that you create in your mind, your own action movie, your own love story, your own whatever. If you're creating a film, a movie in your mind, it helps comprehension. And it's pretty cool because in most books, that means you can fill in the blanks, all right? She had a two-story home. Well, you can make it whatever you want. You can make it look whatever home you want if the author doesn't tell us the specifics about the home. Number 3, is your mind wandering while you're reading? Right? Of course, everybody's mind is going to wander when they read. It's just natural. But good readers catch it. Good readers catch it when their mind starts to wander. As in, good readers use strategies to reconnect with the text. 4, are you remembering what you read? If not, you may need to reread to reconnect comprehension with the text. Right? You may need to reread something to reconnect comprehension with the text if you're not remembering. But that rereading isn't the only thing that you do. It's just a start. 5, while you're reading, clarifying questions are not being answered. Right? The second voice in your mind should be asking questions. Right? Good readers ask clarifying questions. If the questions are not answered, either the reader needs more background knowledge. Right? You need more background knowledge about what's happening here, and you might have to go outside to get it. Or the answer is not in the text, so then you really have to figure out where you're going to get the answers, right? If you can't make that connection, or maybe you find another connection to make. Number 6, does the reader not recognize characters who are not being introduced? Good readers keep track of characters, all right? Authors often bring in characters without introduction. Just somebody knocks on the door and they're there, and there's her name, and there's a whole history between the person in the door and the person answering, but we don't know anything about it, all right? That often happens in novels without like, in walks so and so, and she's like this, and she's like that, and she's like this. Right? Characters come in, and if you find yourself asking yourself, who the heck is this character? I don't remember when they came in. You got to stop, and you got to be mindful that, hey, I got distracted. I was not engaged. I was not having a conversation with the text while I was reading or creating a moving my head. So I need to go back a little bit and reread. Now, that doesn't mean you go back to the beginning of the book or the beginning of the chapter or even the 2 pages. It might be a couple of sentences that you just need to go back to. Right? Just be mindful. Okay. Think about this. Rereading to repair confusion is only the beginning. It's just the beginning. Just repeating words a teacher says, or just fake reading a text is also called parroting, where you're just saying something over that you've heard over and over and over, and you're just repeating it like a parrot does. Students often do not reread because it takes too long. Oh yeah. Merely being told to think harder is not a reading strategy. Remember that. Somebody tells you to think harder, that is not a reading strategy. Not at all. Have you ever been told to think harder? Right? What does that mean? What does that even mean? Okay. What does that ever mean? Think harder. I remember so many teachers saying that when I was in high school. Think harder. What is that? What does think harder mean? So there are strategies to fix up confusion while reading. There are 10 strategies we're going to cover throughout the semester. That doesn't mean you have to know them all, memorize them all, and use them all. You might not even need one of them because you might already do this without thinking. Right? Not all of them may work at a given moment. It just depends on the text. Right? But let's just remind ourselves there are good things that good readers do before we get into strategy number 1, and that's the only one we're going to cover today. Remember, good readers use existing knowledge to make sense of information. Good readers ask questions about the text before, during, and after reading. Good readers draw inferences from the text. Good readers monitor their comprehension. Good readers use fix-up strategies when meaning breaks down. Good readers determine what is important, sometimes what is not. Good readers synthesize information to create new thinking. Good readers create sensory images. Right, so there are 10 reading strategies, and we're going to only cover one today, the first one, number one, and we're going to use it for our assignment. Number one, the first reading strategy is make a connection between the text and your life, your knowledge of the world, or another text. Sometimes the reader has information they don't even use. I had students reading an AP level text from the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker, and it's an actual text that was on the actual Regents exam. And some students were like, this makes no sense. It's not even English. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what a Dracula, what a Count Dracula is. I don't know. I said, there's got to be something in here that you can connect to. Isn't there one word in there that you can connect to? Yeah, I guess the word fear keeps repeating itself. Fear keeps repeating itself. You ever been scared, so scared? All right. What's the thing that the worst kind of fear is? The kind of fear when you don't know what's going to happen to you. All right. Yeah, that reminds me of a movie called Van Helsing, the student said. And then the student looks at me and goes, "Oh, it's that Dracula." I said, "Yeah, you can make connections to movies. There's nothing wrong with it in your mind to get you engaged in the text." You can make connections with memories. You can make connections using personal experiences. Research. Make a connection using research, right? Often you may want to know more about the legends of vampires and where they came from. They came from, I think, probably 1,000 years ago in the Middle East, right? Every single culture has some sort of vampire myth or lore to it, right? So research, you can research the setting of where the novel or where the book takes place. You can research the author. A lot of people like to look up the author, find out about the author's life, and read reviews maybe on Amazon, and they like to read the bad ones just to see what people didn't like about books before they read them. So research. Make a connection using the author's style. Okay, the author's style. What kind of style does the author? Detective stuff, right? Murder mysteries. That's their style. Right? They like to solve a crime. Who done it? Author's style. Making connection using textual organization and structure. All right, textual organization and structure. This means that books are put together in certain ways. They're structured certain ways. For example, the novel The Color Purple by Alice Walker is an epistolary novel. That means it's a series of letters put together to form a book, a whole book. It's all told in stories, all told in letters to God, dear God, dear God, every single page, every single letter. Just imagine if you went back to all your emails and put them all together, you could have a book. All right. So author's structure. When reading for analysis, make really important when you're reading for analysis. Now, we already mentioned these three things that are next, but I want to reinforce them because they're really important when you're reading for analysis, and they're really important to help you write your analysis. When reading for analysis, make text-to-world connections. Text-to-world connections. That is the best thing to do after you're done. If you at the end of your analysis, people are often saying, "How do I write analysis?" You make text-to-world connections. Number two, text-to-text connections. All right. The novel Lord of the Flies is much like the novel of Mice and Man and Animal Farm and Watership Down, in that they're allegories. They represent bigger things that are happening in society. Text-to-text connections. And finally, text-to-self connections. Okay, while you're reading, make text-to-self connections. Oh, I'm reading this passage, and the father offered us some advice. Yeah, that must be my father always gave me advice too, right? Text to self connections. All right. So for our first reading strategy, it's going to be making connections. Today we went back to the agenda, copy and paste the journal slides, and then we're going to begin our reading assignment. Okay. So that's it for this video. Sorry if it went swiftly. I just wanted a copy of it for you guys. And take care.